Good morning and welcome to Between Worlds. I'm Jennifer Kavanagh and it is January 25th, 2021. I wanted to share a dream that I had early this morning. It was kind of like my own version of Hunger Games, but not quite so intense as the movie. I was in this old building. There was a lot of people living in it, an old stone building, a little bit like a university, you could say. There was meeting rooms, there was a cafeteria, there was a residence where people would sleep. And at first, I was just wandering around this building. Everyone was kind of doing the same thing. People were chatting. There was kids, there was adults, but there was a lot of people that I recognized kind of as my own generation, you could say. And as I was wandering through the building, I needed to use the washroom, so I was headed towards one of the bedrooms, and someone had said that they had left something in there for me. So this man had given me a gift, you could say. And when I walked in, there was this long red dress, which was really beautiful when you looked at it. A little bit from a distance, but up close, it felt really cheaply made. You know, like those, department store costumes that you get at Halloween. That material that's like it just doesn't feel good on your body, but I mean, it looks pretty. But the feeling of it, you can tell the quality of that fabric is a little bit less. So it was kind of like that. And there was another box there for someone else, which was a green dress. And anyway, I was trying to be grateful. So I thanked them for the dress and I headed into the washroom to try it on. And I was in the process of trying it on when another woman that I know in this lifetime, a police officer, came in, and she looked disheveled as compared to how I normally know her. Normally very put together, very neat, very well groomed, and her hair was disheveled, and she looked a little bit, confused and exhausted all at the same time. And she said to me, she looked at the dress, she's like, that's a really cheap dress, and she'd given me a little bit of a warning. And I said, oh, I know, but you know I'm just going to go along with it because what else can we do? And there was this sense of not fear, but this knowing that we would be reprimanded if we spoke up with our actual thoughts. So anyway, we had that conversation in the bathroom, and then I had moved into the cafeteria because the game was about to start. And I knew this was a game that we played on a regular basis. And it was a game that I had been really good at in the past, because when I walked in, I was a little bit excited of like, okay, good, we're doing this game. I know I can play this game. I know I do well with this game and I'll be successful based on my past successes. So we're in this old, it's almost like you could picture like a castle type feel of a room. So all of these stone bricks are in the walls, and there's these huge archways, these stone archways at the front of the room, and then there's a big vast empty room beyond that. And on the right hand side of the wall, there's like a buffet set up, so buffet tables, and there's some fireplaces there. And then the main room is just long tables, like you would see in a cafeteria. And as I'm walking in, there's other people, everyone's walking into the room. It's somewhat dark, dim in there, and I'm recognizing all the people. So, I saw people from my elementary school, people from my high school, people I used to work with. I knew a lot of the people in the room, even some family members, some cousins. And um, there was this level of excitement, but also this level of dread. It was a really weird energy in the room. And so we were all scrambling to get a seat. And finally, we sat down and we were given this piece of paper. When you go to restaurants and you get that like menu slash newsletter type placemat. So it's just a piece of paper, and there's usually a little letter in the middle, and then there's ads along the outside. It was felt like that, but it had a historical story on it. And we were to read the story, and then we were going to be tested on the story. Um, but we weren't allowed to answer a question unless we got the lottery. So it was a little bit like bingo / historical exam. And so we each all had these little tiny pieces of paper that had numbers on them. And there was probably 20 to 30 little numbers that we had to keep track of, and all this flimsy light paper. So all those numbers were cut out into individual tiny pieces. So we have them spread out on our table. We have our history that we've read, and they start calling numbers. And each number they call, if your number is called, you're asked a question. And if you answer it correctly, you're able to go and select one food item from the buffet to eat. So I was like, okay, I got this. So there's no worries here. I can do this. And I set up all my little numbers. They start calling the numbers. And every time they call a number, a wind comes through and it blows all the numbers off my table and a couple numbers off other people's tables. And I start getting really angry because I can't play the game if I don't have my numbers, if I can't see my numbers. And so with each one, they're blowing and they're blowing, and my frustration is getting worse and worse until somebody finally closes the door to the open area in front, because that's where the wind was coming through. So the wind stops, and I'm gathering up all my little pieces of paper from the floor. I'm trying to flip them over so I can see the numbers, and I hear them call the number 11. And I don't hear anybody raise their hand to say, oh, I have that number, kind of like bingo. And so in my head, I go, oh, I probably have that number. I think I have that number. And so I quickly find it. And then I yell, bingo, I have 11. And this large man comes over and he asks me this question about the story. And I can tell that there's an image in the center of this placemat of some people who are on a raft, like a wooden raft that they have made. And there's this angular support, like 2 poles on either side of the raft that's holding 2 lanterns on the front of the raft. And I was to give him the name of the lantern, which I can't remember now. It was a very obscure name. And that was not an issue. But then I was asked whose team they were on. So there was some kind of like battle that was happening, like, like a dark and light battle. Because I kept hearing black and white in my head. I felt like I was asked, was it black or was it white? And I hesitated because I couldn't hear what he was actually asking me. His voice became really muffled. And I had asked him to repeat the question, and I still couldn't hear him. All I could hear was the hum of these fireplaces, these 2 fireplaces. And I started to panic at this point, and I apologized. And I said, I'm normally really good at this, but I cannot hear your question. But there was also this underlying energy of, I knew the answer wasn't the obvious answer. I knew that what I knew to be the truth, or what I believed the story to be based on previous history, that answer was wrong, and that I would need to invert my answer in order to give them the answer that they wanted. So I hesitated for a moment, and I can't remember what I actually said, but I took a very hesitant guess. And I did get it right, but he got very angry with me that I hesitated. They did allow me to go to the buffet and pick one piece of food to bring back to my plate. But then he went on to lecture everybody really angrily, and was yelling at the room that we should know these answers. We should know these answers. They should be in our mind. We shouldn't need to look at the story, the narrative to know what they are. And then I awoke shortly thereafter, and I was sitting with this dream this morning. It just had me, reflecting on this concept of being in a school, knowing that you're in a school. And I often think of, we often hear Earth represented as a school, right? When we come to the Earth, it's a school, but it not actually being a school. And this idea that we believe we're free to come and go, we believe we're free to make choices, we believe that we, can eat when we want to eat, and we're grateful when we get food, but being unaware that we're actually not allowed to leave this school, and we are actually not allowed to have these resources that we think we have free access to, but we only have access to them when we respond in the way that we're expected to respond. So it was this, I guess, metaphor for the way that we can easily move into a state of compliance. Maybe isn't the right word, but we go along not because we necessarily agree, not because we don't even feel that there's something that doesn't feel right, but because we feel that that's the only way for us to survive. And this essence of, we need food and we need these resources, and if we don't believe what we're supposed to believe, will we still have access to them, and then what happens to us? So that's kind of the questioning, or the feeling, or the metaphor that I was left with, and the subtlety of it, because in this scenario, it really was, in a true sense, the Hunger Game of, we were playing this game, and you only got to eat if you answered it correctly. It wasn't as graphic as, say, the movies have been, but similar concept. And I think it really speaks to the subtlety that some of these energies can work at, and how easy it is for us to fall into that game, right? And to recognize, what aspects of the game we feel we are good at, what aspects of the game we may struggle with, how that changes when there's obstacles thrown in the way. So anyhow, that is that's what I've picked up on in the last dream state. We'll see what today brings. I'm definitely feeling a little bit of agitated energy this morning. And I feel that for myself, and as well with some of the collective that I've connected with already this morning. So it's going to be a good day, I think, to get outside and try to ground, and maybe put some uplifting music on, and perhaps examine our relationship with food. So there you have it. Until we speak again.